What is going on today, guys? My name's Alex and welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about Plasti Dip and whether or not you should Plasti Dip your rims too. So, like I just said, I have had these things Plasti Dip for about 3 years, give or take, and I'm actually pretty happy with how they've held up. I know I've seen some pretty crappy Plasti Dip rims over the years on the highway, and they look like garbage. And these things actually don't look too terrible after 3 years of kind of use and abuse. And if you guys have been following the channel, you know this thing has been taking a fair share of off-road abuse over the last little bit. I even put chains on the rear wheels, which I'll show you in a sec. Left some pretty good dents or dings in the Plasti Dip. The other thing I'll point out is when I got these wheels changed, kind of the outside of every rim kind of got scraped up pretty good, just as they were changing the wheels on the tire machine. It is what it is. What are you gonna do? I could probably touch it up, but whatever. But lastly, what I'll say is over the years, I have noticed that the Plasti Dip itself, it tends to fade. Instead of it being kind of a dark, rich black, it tends to be much more of a grayer, faded kind of black. So what I do is I clean these things up with a little bit of wax, and it does tend to really kind of give them a much more deeper, dark look to them. But as these things tend to get more dirty, they will go back to that faded black look, which I'll show you in just a second here. On the other side of the truck, I didn't clean a wheel specifically to show you guys. All right, so this is the wheel that I was talking about. I didn't actually clean, and hopefully you guys can see that it's a little bit just grayer and faded looking than the rest of the wheels that I did clean. And this is what I hate the most about Plasti Dip rims, is when they are a little bit older and they're just not clean. They just look faded and crappy, and so I don't like. That's the one thing I really don't like. Obviously down there, right around here, you can see there's a little ding there. That's when I popped my tire, and this thing was just riding around the back of my truck. But that is a different story for a different day. But yeah, that's my biggest problem with the Plasti Dip rims, is when they get dirty, they just look terrible. So if you are thinking about Plasti Dipping your rims, be prepared to clean your rims quite consistently, or else they are just gonna look, typically just cheap and, not as authentic, if you will. And yeah, sorry, this nail is not painted. It just got smashed. But yeah, anyways, this is the where my tire chains were, and it was just bouncing up against the rim, and you can see it just took off a good chunk of paint, which kind of looks bad. But I don't I don't imagine many of you guys are planning to put tire chains on your rim, so you probably don't have to worry about that. And hopefully, as you can see, the rest of the rim is pretty chip free. The other thing I like specifically about the Rams is that there's a factory option of like black 20-inch rims. And so, when you Plasti Dip these rims, it still kind of has that factory look to it, which I really like. I know with some other rims, they don't offer them in black, so they're just gonna look different. But with this truck, the blacked out Plasti Dip rims kind of do look in place. It just makes the truck look like a much better looking factory truck, which I personally like. And maybe that's just me, but I've seen a couple other Rams with Plasti Dip rims. I have Plasti Dip rims so I can spot out other Plasti Dip rims, but usually to the average person, they all just look the same, which again, personally, I really liked. If you do have a Ram 1500, I think it's a pretty cheap, inexpensive option if you can't afford, $1,000 factory black rims. So if you do want to venture down using Plasti Dip on your rims, I'll give you guys a couple tips, at least what I found helpful and what I researched before I plasti dip my rims. First of all, you're gonna wanna buy 4 cans because you wanna get this plasti dip on here pretty thick. When you see rims that are starting to chip and whole big pieces of plasti dip have come off rims you see on the road, it's usually because they just spray a thin layer of plasti dip. What you want is you basically want 1 can per wheel or per rim. The other thing you wanna do before you start spraying this is you want to put all 4 cans in some really hot water and let them sit in a bucket of hot water for maybe half an hour. What that does is when you're spraying this, the particles that come out are much thinner, much less like clumpy. And you'll see that my plasti dip is pretty smooth. It looks pretty smooth to the eye. And what you will get if you have, let's say, just like room temperature cold plasti dip paint, it looks much more splotchy and just kind of it doesn't look as smooth. So always make sure when you're spraying this stuff, if you want a smooth finish, you make sure the paint's a little bit warm before you start spraying. Another thing you want to do before you start spraying, what I did is I actually just took all 4 wheels off the truck. I put the truck on jack stands and I cleaned each rim like thoroughly, because you want a nice clean surface for this paint to stick to. And so I cleaned the rim thoroughly, dried them off thoroughly, and then it just made it so much easier when you're spraying with these wheels completely off the truck. So with the wheel off the truck, when you're spraying this rim, you don't have to worry about hitting your brakes or taping off your brakes or anything like that. And you can just simply focus on putting pieces of paper all along the rim so you don't actually spray your tire. Another thing what you can do, what I've seen guys do, is you just buy 4 decks of cards, and the cards are a little bit thicker so they're easy to shove between the tire and the rim. And that way you just kind of have this perfect spraying area. You don't need to worry about overspray, and you can just work from there. Now remember, if you did heat up your cans of paint, the paint's gonna be a little bit runnier than what it would be at just room temperature. So you wanna be really careful and start super thin and then just work your way around. So what I did is I'd spray 1 coat, let it dry for maybe half an hour, come back down, do another coat, let it dry for half an hour, another coat, and basically till all 4 cans of paint ran out. It kind of goes as a rule of thumb. Whenever you're working with paint, it's the preparation that makes the end result that much better. And it's no different with plasti dip. You know, you want to prepare and just make it as easy as possible so the result is the best it can be. Most importantly, what I forgot to say is that it's plasti dip. So if you don't like it, you can just peel it off and start over again. No harm, no foul. So for like $12 a can, so 4 cans, so let's call it $50 even, with a little bit of time and effort, you can have some pretty cool looking rims. Now obviously it's not going to be the most professional look out there, but I think for $50 it's pretty good bang for your buck. Like I said, I really like the look of the black rim with these trucks. For the time being, or for the last couple years, this stuff has served me pretty well. Like I said, it's not perfect, it'll never be perfect, but if you're just looking for a cool looking black rim and you don't want to spend that much money, this really isn't a bad option. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on plasti dip. If you like the video, maybe think about throwing me a thumbs up, and if you like stuff like this, maybe think about subscribing. That would be awesome, and we'll see you guys on the next freaking video.